Welcome everybody to our weekly protest for Fridays for Freedom. It's a big honor to be here, as every week with activists from several struggles today. I'm very happy to see Hong Kong, Belarusians, Russians, and much more coming to this protest, because we must stand together. As we say every week, it's fundamental that wherever we are from, we must stand for freedom. From London to San Francisco to Jakarta to Cape Town, there are protests going on today for Fridays for Freedom, and I'm incredibly happy to, after this very long lockdown, having a small-scale protest here in London with you all. I won't speak long, because today we actually have a very exciting lineup of speakers, starting with Benedict here on my right. I will introduce in 1 second. I just want to remind you that to respect social distancing and all the rules for protesting in lockdown, so we are back avoid a big fight. So I now hand the mic to Benedict Rogers, founder, chairman, president of Hong Kong Watch, and a great friend of ours, and also a great defender of human rights in Myanmar and Hong Kong. So Benedict, welcome to the protest.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me? Great. Well, it's a really great privilege to be with you. This is actually my first venture out, not online, but in public. I still have my lockdown hairstyle, which I need to fix, but I'm glad to be with you, although I wish this gathering was not necessary, and I'm sure we all wish that too. I believe passionately in freedom for everyone, everywhere around the world. But there are two particular places that have a special place in my heart, Hong Kong and Myanmar. Hong Kong was once my home. I lived in Hong Kong for the first 5 years after the handover, and at that time Hong Kong was still an open and free place. In fact, I used to speak and even protest in Hong Kong for other things, and today we find that we have to protest for Hong Kong itself. Myanmar I have worked on for 20 years, visited more than 50 times, sometimes through the borders, through the capital with a visa, but sometimes illegally across some of the borders into the ethnic areas. And today, both those places are in urgent need of the world's help. It's right that we are meeting today on the occasion which is both the day when we have seen 9 Hong Kong pro-democracy leaders, 9 of the most respected, most senior in age, but also in experience, and internationally renowned pro-democracy leaders. People like the father of the democracy movement, Martin Lee, the proprietor of the only pro-democracy daily newspaper, Jimmy Lai, the courageous barrister, Margaret Ng, the trade union leader and Labour Party founder, Lee Cheuk-yen, and others. And they have all been sentenced, some to suspended sentences and some to prison sentences, but all of them have been sentenced simply for doing what we are doing today, simply for peacefully protesting. I've spent most of today giving media interviews in reaction to the sentences, and some of the journalists asked me whether I thought what I thought was the reason for the more lenient sentences. And I said two things. Firstly, in a sense they are not lenient because they should not be imprisoned at all. They should not be prosecuted at all. All they did was take part in a peaceful protest, and that should never be a crime. But secondly, perhaps there is a reason why, in the scale of sentences that the judge could have imposed, I think a maximum of 5 years in prison was possible under the charges they face. From that perspective, the sentences are perhaps more lenient. And maybe the explanation for that is that the judges and the authorities knew that the international community would speak out. People like us would speak out. That Hong Kong people would express their protest. And maybe that shows that what we do can make some difference. It hasn't resulted in their freedom, it hasn't resulted in their acquittal, but it may have created pressure that may have caused the judges to issue more lenient sentences. But the other thing that also shows is that the judgment was a political judgment, not a judgment based on facts or even really on the rule of law. And so we must continue to protest for everyone in Hong Kong who has been unjustly imprisoned. Just yesterday, Hong Kong Watch launched a new campaign to free Hong Kong political prisoners. And if you go to our website, we have a dedicated webpage now for political prisoners in Hong Kong, and we will go on campaigning not just for the people who've been jailed today, but for every Hong Kong political activist or ordinary citizen who's unjustly imprisoned. In Myanmar, the situation is horrendous. Over 700 people in just over 2 months since the coup on the 1st of February, over 700 people have been killed, and probably the death toll is much higher than that. We've seen children killed. We've seen the military use rocket-propelled grenades, RPGs, machine guns, lethal force against unarmed peaceful protesters. We've seen over 3,000 people imprisoned in Myanmar, including over 30 just yesterday. But also in the ethnic areas, places that I've been to many times myself in the past, crossing illegally from neighbouring countries into the jungles. The military has unleashed a terrible military offensive against the ethnic minorities. In Karen State, 24,000 people are now internally displaced, having had to flee their villages after the military launched airstrikes against them, bombed them, and have sent troops into the ethnic areas as well. And so in both these situations, the world needs to speak out, governments need to act, and the British government in particular has a special responsibility to these two particular places. It has a legal responsibility as well as a moral one for Hong Kong as a signatory to the Sino-British Joint Declaration, which China has breached now so many times. But it also has a moral responsibility to Myanmar. We have a history together with Myanmar. And so Britain must take a lead in the international community. We need the British government to, it has done some things and we welcome what it has done, but we need them to do more. We need them to mobilize the international community to form a coalition of democracies to stand up against the destruction of democracy in both Hong Kong and Myanmar. We need them to impose tougher sanctions. We haven't had any Magnitsky sanctions, despite most of Parliament and many of us campaigning for so long. And now, after the sentences we've seen today in Hong Kong, it's time for the British government to impose Magnitsky sanctions on officials in Beijing and Hong Kong who are responsible for the destruction of Hong Kong's freedoms and autonomy. But we need stronger sanctions against the Myanmar military as well, and against military enterprises. So I will continue every day to do whatever I can for these two places and for freedom everywhere. And I know other causes are represented here today, including, I believe, Belarus. I haven't had direct involvement with Belarus, but I stand with you in solidarity. And wherever freedom is repressed or destroyed or threatened around the world, it's not only our responsibility to help others, but it's also our own interest as well, because wherever freedom is threatened, our own freedom is then threatened. The last thing I would say is the other thing that brings Hong Kong and Myanmar together for me is that I have the dubious distinction of having been deported from Myanmar by the Myanmar military not once but twice, and being denied entry to Hong Kong. Maybe if I try and visit Belarus, I'll add that to my list, but I'm not sure I have the capacity to do that. But I stand with these two situations. I hope you will continue to speak out as well. I know you will. And let's keep up the pressure on the British government and other governments to stand up for human rights and freedom around the world, and especially in Hong Kong, in Myanmar, and in Belarus, and everywhere where it is threatened. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hey guys, before I pass the mic to Emma to tell us about Russia, we're gonna scream a bit. We're gonna warm up. We're gonna sing. Are you ready? So as always, I'm gonna ask you what do you want, and we're gonna start with Free Hong Kong. So when I think it's pretty clear, it's now, if you agree. Are you ready? We're gonna do it a few times until they hear you across the street. Right? So I want very loud screams. What do you want? Free Hong Kong! I can't hear you guys. It has to be much louder. What do you want? Free Hong Kong! When do you want it? Now! When do you want it? Now! Okay, that's not bad. We're gonna keep on going throughout with different chants. I hope this was an okay warm-up because this is gonna get much louder. Beautiful. So, ancora una nostra banda, every week we'll be protesting for 9 months from the 40 cities, bringing the pandemic, not easy, and fulfilling democracy across the world. And this is from Hong Kong to Myanmar, to Belarus, to Russia, Venezuela, Cuba, to a whole lot of countries. And it also includes our own democracy. So we call this like Benedict stand for a legal democracy. All come together, work together, to not only impose sanctions on but also hold each other accountable for their violations. No democracy is perfect. Democracy will be respected. We see rights being cut down across Europe, across the US, across established democracies. Black lives have been threatened in the US and in the UK because we're existing. Women's rights have been threatened before in the US as well. Trans lives have been threatened. People are accused of homosexual acts in Cameroon and in Mexico. Across the world, rights and democracy are our friends. And like our friends from Belarus last week said, we have a duty to stand together. We have a duty to act. If we don't work for democracy, we let it die. We have to act closely every week with all countries coming together. We stand together for democracy. And on this note, I'm giving you Emma from Russia, who's going to tell us about the Belarus, about the process, and about what we can all do. I can get it.
You just tell me. Hi guys, I hope the mic is. Yeah. Okay. Shall I speak there? Okay. I can actually, yeah, but I need somebody to hold it for me because I.
But let's also film the people. Let's do it like this, no? So we can film.
Yep.
So if you press.
I need to tune the pages, so
Okay,
if
so I can
one
wait.
can.
Let me
Sorry, I don't want to be hassle here, but.
Okay.
Hi guys, I'm Evgenia Badma from Russian protest group in London. They all call me Eva here in the UK. Hi. Oh, that works better. So as I said, my name is Evgenia Badma. I'm from Russian protest group in London, and I've been kindly, one of the activists from my group kindly wrote a text for me to speak on behalf of the protest group in London. So Russia is living through dark times. Percy Craddock, head of UK government communication headquarters, insisted that USSR has never collapsed. The Soviets are faking it to trick everyone. This claim does not sound so absurd anymore. Modern Russia inherited the worst features of the Soviet Union and gave the ruling class a veil of legitimacy to own the whole country. Property rights for me, but no property rights for thee. And Putin has it more accessible than any previous ruler. He does not have to pretend to conform to his country's and his people's ideology. For non-party members, repressions are going full stream, just like in USSR. Putin critics Boris Nemtsov was shot near Kremlin walls. Vladimir Karamurza was poisoned with illegal chemical weapons and is very lucky to be alive now. After failing to die on Putin's order, Alexei Navalny was sent to prison and now he's being tortured there. The old man, the father of Navalny's collaborator Ivan Zhdanov, was also jailed. A student-run Russian independent news outlet covering higher education issues was shut down just this week. Doxa is a new generation online magazine, members of which are younger than Putin's regime. Every member of Doxa was placed on house arrest. The situation with democracy in modern Russia comes to resemble the Soviet Union regime. Rebranded KGB still runs the country under the facade of democracy. In reality, there is no democracy in Russia. Putin is continuing the trend with annexation of foreign territories. We live in Britain and take for granted many things considered unattainable ideals for other countries. Britain strives to be the force for good in the world. And those are not just words. Like the royal family made personal sacrifices during WW2 to boost their citizens' morale, the British ruling class is making personal sacrifice to advance justice worldwide. Magnitsky sanctions impose assets freezes and travel restrictions on kleptocrats from all over the world. People involved with the murder of Russian lawyer Sergei Magnitsky and Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi are already sanctioned. They sanctioned Nigerian authorities after the massacre last October. This sends a clear message to politicians around the world that even if they get away with committing atrocities in their home countries, they will not be able to send their children to prestigious British boarding schools and keep their assets in safe British banks. Those people were sanctioned long after their crimes were committed. Why not sanction while they're committing their crimes? A clear message that Britain will not tolerate human rights abuses anywhere has to be sent. Navalny is one of the few beacons of light in Russian darkness. He managed to withstand all pressure from Putin and expose the scale of corruption of the ruling class. He showed the country that they are not only thieves but also murderers. He managed to overcome media censorship and surpass federal channels' audience with his own YouTube channel. His election strategy made the ruling party lose their rigid elections. Russian authorities torture Navalny in prison and refuse medical help. His health is quickly deteriorating. They now use a strategy of letting him die rather killing him after several attempts on his life. They won't stop until they silence him. Some people who are orchestrating crimes against humanity enjoy their rights and freedoms here in Britain, while helping to destroy remnants of Russian citizens' rights and liberties. Boris Johnson, we ask you to act now. Hold those people accountable before they commit other crimes and deaths of other people. Act now. Thank you, guys. Sure, of
You wanna do
course.
it?
Yes, you do it, and
You
I'll.
want me to do it?
Yeah.
So same concept, but free Navalny. We're singing, we're shouting, we're getting ready for more. Yeah?
Yep.
Beautiful. Is it working? It's fine. What do you want?
Free Navalny!
What do you want?
Free Navalny!
When do you want it?
Now!
When do you want it?
Now!
Next up, we're going to have Alison from Belarus who's going to give us an update after her wonderful speech last week.
I'm not very technological, so I apologize. I'm sorry it's me again. I didn't expect to speak today, but I'll start like I started last week with Živě Belarus!
Živě Belarus!
Živě Belarus!
Živě Belarus!
Louder! Živě Belarus!
Živě Belarus!
Svoboda Navalny! I'm just showing off now. Things are going from the sublimely awful to the ridiculous in Belarus. The regime is currently fighting a battle against the colours red and white. The paranoia is increasing by the day. I heard yesterday that a woman called Christina has been sentenced to 15 days in horrendous conditions in the detention centre for wearing, wait for this one, red and white socks. It really is that ridiculous. They are even painting over signs that are in red or white, or both is worse. So that it's not even against people, it's against inanimate objects as well. So that, for example, a sign marking the entrance to Brest region overnight went from having a red background. In the morning, people discovering it had a blue background. So, you know, it's either desperation or it's sheer paranoia. I was talking to, this is what strikes me about this event, is how there's a common thread. There's so much more that unites us than divides us. I was speaking to a South African today who had lived through apartheid, and he said they had similar at that time when they banned the book, children's book about a horse called Black Beauty, because it mentioned the word black, and that regime at the time would not accept having that word there, though it somehow had some significance. But actually the sinister stuff is increasing too. There's now no such thing as an independent lawyer in Belarus because all independent law firms have been brought under state control. There's next to no independent journalism now because the journalists are in detention. Clearly, Lukashenko is trying to control information. That is, information for the citizens in Belarus and also the information that comes out of the country. There is talk of a China-style crackdown on digital media, which would be the next stage that I can imagine. But you know what? The brave people of Belarus still take to the streets. Many, many more are very terrified to go out. I mean, they even arrested a mother whose child had a red jacket and a white hat on. So, you know, it really is quite arbitrary, the things that you can be arrested for. I translated a testimony from a Russian woman who happened to be in Minsk on election night, and she asked police, could she go through a police cordon, and she asked what was happening, and perfectly polite, and she got a sentence in Okrestima, the notorious detention center, for that act of asking a question. She was beaten up, she was put in what they call a stakan. I don't know if you have that in Russian. It's an isolation cell, which is pitch black, and you can't sit down in it. It's in the back of a police van. she was put in there, and then she was taken to a Kristina, where the aim seemed to be towards the women humiliation, as much humiliation as possible, a lot of sadism that really reminded me of something at Solzhenitsyn. And the men, extreme violence. She is 100% certain that people were being killed while she was there. She is adamant that that's going on. So as Belarus has kind of drifted off the headlines, which is really disappointing, it's really important that we're seen at events like this, that we are united, because I listen to all of you, whether you're here for Hong Kong, for Myanmar, Russia, everything. It's essential that we get together, because united we are so much stronger. Thank you so much. I'm very impressed with this group. You will be seeing me every Friday.
Woo! Anna, can you go more in the middle so we can film this first?
I finished with you, but I was your thing. And
I think I need help with the...
you have a...
So we need a free better, but I want it better.
Then we take like a good picture after that, okay?
Okay.
Okay guys, you heard it. We're gonna do Żyje Belarus, and we're gonna chant as well. But I'm bringing here other people to help me with the accent.
A real Belarusian, not a Scottish fake.
Well, I hear that you Belarusian is very good.
Belarusian is in my heart. Scottish is Belarusian.
Okay, you ready? It's one of the last chants, so louder than we've heard it so far. What do we want?
Belarus!
I can't hear you, so this has to be much, much louder, because we won't give up until it's much, much louder. What do we want?
Belarus!